Welcome to Applied AI Australia. I'm Ramon Rodriguez, and here's the truth. Ignoring AI is probably the fastest way to fall behind. This show cuts through the noise and delivers only on what matters: growth, margins, and time. Each week, I translate AI into practical outcomes leaders can actually use. Today for our practice series, I'm with Samir Ghoudrani, data scientist and AI subject matter expert. He's currently a director at PwC Australia, though his views today are personal and not on behalf of PwC. Australian enterprises are spending an average of $28 million a year into AI, yet 72% are claiming not to see measurable ROI. Today we're going to unpack the missing layer that's costing executive boards and organizational leaders millions in wasted AI investment every year. Now, we're going to talk about what that means and how to apply it into your business in the next 48 hours. Let's jump into it.
I'm Samir. I am Moroccan French. I came to Australia 7 years ago. Most of my experience and interest is about science. I love science and innovation. So I naturally went to data science for most of my career. I did a lot of that. And then when AI came in, it was the first time you can have some models that are really, really smart and operate on language, and you can make really, really interesting things out of it. So I naturally went into that. I've been at PwC. I'm a director at PwC at the moment, but today I'm talking as myself. It's my opinion.
Thank you very much for that. I'd love to get your take. There's obviously a lot of hype going on in the world of AI at the moment. What's real, what's not? But yeah, what are you seeing firsthand?
It's very exciting, first of all. Lots of things going on, lots of new models coming, and you look at the benchmarks and it's beating PhD level at this, at that. So it's really, really exciting times in general. And all of us can see it on the news. Now, the thing is, reality comes in and people want to do things. People want to automate things. They want to create new value. They want to build an amazing application that does something extremely smart. And what happens usually is that there's a lot of focus on the models. There's lots of focus on the technology. And very often people underestimate a little bit the data component. So today, I'll talk about the data component.
So let's dig into that. Everyone's speaking about the new shiny tool, the MCPs, the APIs, and everything in between, the new models. They're upgrading so much, but all of that is well and great. And I think enterprises and organizations would have known that data is extremely important, but in AI, it's obviously to another level. So can you tell me why you think data is so important? What role it's going to play in organizations?
Yeah, look, there is a paradox with data. At the same time, there is a lot of it, way too much. More data than you can make sense of, and more data that you can get wisdom and knowledge from. That's the first side of the paradox. Open any data warehouse, any data lake, you will find lots of tables, lots of different logs, transactions, product data, lots of, sometimes millions, billions of transactions and logs, and events and touch points if you're managing customers. And then you look at the traditional BI and data science. It takes all this data and it gives you a little slice of insight, something useful. So much effort to go from a lot of data to a bit of insight. And at the same time, there's not enough of it because lots of meaningful data points are missing. Ask any new joiner to a company, ask them how many weeks or months it took them to get their head around the business. It will be quite a bit. And then ask them, what helped you most? Was it having coffee with people, talking, shadowing, or reading some really good documentation data that explains to you? And very often it's actually the former. It's things are not written. So at the same time, lots of data, but not meaningful. That's the key. Lots of data, not immediately meaningful unless you process it. Hence, we have all these jobs for the last 20 years of BI, data science, analytics, etc. And at the same time, not enough because lots of missing meaningful data points. So it creates this vacuum of some meaningful things are not implemented. And this one, usually people paid quite massively when they try to build an agentic solution. And they say, okay, one of our inputs will be the documentation. We have lots of training guides and documentation. Let's feed them. Yeah, but too bad. They were not updated. They're not reflective of the reality, And that's across the board. It's very general.
So With the AI implementations that you're doing, what the data is showing at McKinsey and many data sources is so many projects and implementations are failing. Do you think a part of that could be due to poor data quality?
If we take a step back, companies like OpenAI, Anthropic are able to provide this very low cost intelligence as a service. Reasoning engine. It's a reasoning engine. It doesn't have much context because it wasn't trained on your context or mine. It's in general. So this reasoning engine, and then the other piece of the puzzle is your context. If you give context to intelligence, you get magic. You get amazing things going on. And the bottleneck is the context, because how do you pass context to this new intelligence, this new form of intelligence, very different from anything we've ever seen? How do you pass that context? And we can call this job knowledge engineering. It's not data engineering that you've been hearing about for years and years. It's knowledge engineering.
What I've been hearing and seeing is similar to what you're saying. It's sort of confirming it, that context could be just as big, if not bigger, than actually the prompt that is going in. So can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot here. And that's a bottleneck. Yeah. Remember when we said data is not meaningful? Most of the data is not meaningful. It's raw. In fact, we need to make it meaningful. Someone needs someone, actually. It's a team of people, multidisciplinary, need to take this and bring it as a context to AI. So this is what we can call knowledge engineering. And let's unpack it. It has at least four different personas need to work together. You have the data engineer, of course. Then we have the SME knowledge, because we need to know what we're talking about. It's goal-oriented. Knowledge is really goal-oriented. Then you have the AI engineer, technology and AI engineer, because this knowledge will be fed to AI. So if you don't have AI in mind, how AI is working, it will not be a useful knowledge base. Because when you do this at scale, you need to manage relationships in data points. And the science of relationships is not an easy one. And the fifth element is they need to have the proper time and sponsorship to actually take time to do knowledge engineering. You open a room, you find these four people working together. What are you doing? We're doing knowledge engineering. If you don't believe in it, you tell them, go do some real work. So there is awareness, where awareness is very important. About there is this missing link, data, AI, something in between. We need to feed this context to AI. This is knowledge engineering. And it's not easy. It's art and science. We just need to be aware about it and put the right people to work on it.
So there's obviously data, and you're saying knowledge engineering is the gap in between that and the LLM. So context and data. Am I following?
Yeah, exactly. Because this knowledge layer will be finding structured data, unstructured data. There are many pieces of technology to put together, but you cannot avoid the thinking and putting people around the table to as a task force to build this. Again, it's a new skill set.
So you're saying data and knowledge engineering are two separate things that work hand in hand?
They work hand in hand, along with knowledge, along with technology, of course, and AI.
If we had to put it down to the key things to a successful implementation of an AI strategy, you've obviously got data. Now we've added knowledge engineering into the mix. What are some of the other things that you think are critical to strategy and implementation that you see in AI today?
So this one is the one that is a bit underlooked. How do you redefine it? Value. So this is a top down. Then there is enablement. Give your company the right technology, give your company the right skills and the right knowledge engineering, right? And then there is this bottom up. You need people to just go and do things. You give them the right knowledge. Let's talk about those four things, right? We said data, SME knowledge, etc. Lots of SMEs, if they're digital, they will use AI. So you'll have SME plus AI equal Copilot Magic equal GPT Enterprise. So they will do some really cool stuff with these two skills. Then you have data and AI people. They will tell you, let's build agentic solutions. They will build stuff, but they don't have the SME knowledge. Hence, the need to combine those four at the same time. If you have this enablement, this knowledge base, with knowledge engineering, okay, it will look differently from company to company. Then you enable power users and super users, and ultimately every user. They will plug their Copilot to the knowledge base and things will work. It's too raw. It's not an integration challenge. You can still plug your GPT Enterprise or Copilot to a bunch of data, but it's too raw. Remember? It's not meaningful.
I see it overlooked so much, but I think to the knowledge engineering and the data piece, so many times you hear about AI not working and solutions not working, But garbage in, garbage out, if it hasn't got the right context and data, what really do we expect? I think if you put it into basic terms, it's like sometimes when you don't give the AI really any information to go off, a very bad prompt and you get a horrible response in return, and people say ChatGPT doesn't work, right? But it's like asking a friend to give you advice on something, but you don't tell them what the problem you're actually facing is. It's sort of crazy.
Let's unpack this. That's very interesting. Let's
Yeah.
unpack it. So prompting for me is management. Are you a good manager? Prompting means you lay the context. Not even talking about knowledge engineering stage. You lay the context, you give what you want, you ask, and you give guidance. You think, should I micromanage a little bit or not? And knowledge engineering is, now, do I just give this file over there? Do I give them access to that database? If you do everything, it's not meaningful. It would get lost. Remember when we said that it doesn't fit in context? LLM, the context is actually, it's small. That's a paradox. It looks big, but it's actually quite small compared to all the data out there. And the solution is knowledge engineering.
So if we talk about knowledge engineering and good data, how does an organization today go about doing that? What's your advice, Samir?
So first of all, we need to be aware that there is a gap. But that's already a really good one, being aware. Because otherwise, we'll keep doing use cases and saying, okay, the use case is in charge of solving the knowledge problem. They will do it to some extent. But ideally, we have a strong knowledge engineering done in a transverse manner. It's being aware, putting the right skills around the table, and having a bit of, being goal-oriented, having some goals in mind. Like, what are the big things that my company needs to do? For example, we need to become much better with our customers at doing proactive customer experience. We need some big tickets like this, some big objective, because then we can walk backwards and say, if that's our aim, we want to become proactive with our customers, then we need to look at all the touch points. We need to anticipate they're unhappy, happy. But wait, today we had 2 million transactions. What did we learn? What kind of wisdom we got today from all our data points, from all the logs and the transactions that we got? We didn't get any wisdom. What's going on? We have 2 dashboards over there. Okay. Our knowledge engineering needs to be better. I need to know when a customer makes a transaction, you can write an entire article. It's a story about it. They made a transaction to buy this at that time. This is their persona. That was the context. It was a Friday morning. It was summer. And the day before, they actually did something very different. And, you can write an entire context and story just around that transaction, this line that you see over there in the transaction table. And this doesn't come by itself. If you don't have a proactive knowledge engineering activity that's going on and looking at and connecting the dots, there's lots of connecting the dots as well.
So they need to clearly understand the business problem that they're trying to solve. Often I see a lot of implementations and they actually don't even know what they're trying to solve and they're not even measuring it, right? So how do you know it's going to be a success? But I really love what you just said, because I've never thought about it like that. A purchase, if you think about, an e-commerce transaction that goes through, it's worth so much, the audience demographic is X, but there's so many other things that, to your point, you could tell a story with and actually build out your knowledge engineering that I think so many of us would overlook. So yeah, wow. So how would a business go about actually working that out? Say we've got a client and they've got thousands of transactions per month. How do they go about actually putting this knowledge engineering into practice? Is this someone they hire? Is this a consultant that they need? What are the steps to fixing this once they know that they've got a problem?
Yeah. I think now we need to avoid this tunnel where we do some work and it's a bit buried. So we need to walk backwards from some big tickets, some big objectives. As I said, the customer experience, the proactive one, or it can be, for example, increasing safety. I want to increase safety. We need some big tickets like this. And then we need to walk backward and say, if we have infinite intelligence, that's very important. If we have infinite intelligence and heavy lifting to think and reason, how can our data best serve our goal? And this is using AI to go from data to knowledge, along with those 4 people that I mentioned before. If they need to use AI.
So step 1 for you was awareness, obviously acknowledging that's a problem. So what's step 2?
So step 2, so that this knowledge engineering is a bit oriented with the North Star, is to walk backwards. What are the big things that this company wants to solve or get better at? It can be some very specific safety domain. It can be something about efficiency, or it can be proactive customer experience. We want to become super proactive. We don't want people to complain. We want to go way before that and raise their experience. So what are those big tickets? That's step 2. Step
Okay,
3
the
is
big
the task
tickets.
force. Yeah, so that we walk backwards.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is step 2 is sort of reverse engineering from their goal or North Star is
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
what's the purpose? What are we looking for? And then there is some sort of data discovery. We need to know which data we have. So companies have different levels of maturity. Discovery, mapping, before even starting this knowledge engineering. That's step 3. Then there is something around data remediation and quality, because this data will not always be clean.
Yeah,
And
okay. So
here we can use AI again. AI is an
yeah.
accelerator for everything. So you will find because I might have multiple systems, I might have low and poor data quality, but it was okay so far because we're just storing it. But now we want to use AI to do some really good stuff, and we need this knowledge and so now we need to clean our data. But good news, I can use AI as a heavy lifting engine to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's really interesting, right? So people just so from even thinking about myself and things, I've worked on, sometimes I'll do step 1, 2, 3, but sort of I think most people get lazy at step 4, definitely in terms of quality, because I think a lot of organizations are going to be jumping straight from I've got some data to I'm using AI to hopefully generate business outcomes out of it. But the in between the data and the engineering is absolutely off. So I think, it's pretty easy to get my head around, step 1 of acknowledging there's a problem, step 2, working out what the goal is,
Yeah.
blue sky, walking back from there, and then step 3, actually understanding what level of data do I have, that data
Yeah.
discovery. And then you've got the quality, right? What does quality data look like? Can you unpack step 3 and 4 a little bit? How do you uncover what data you've got and what defines good quality data? And
So
how do you acquire good data? Yeah.
yeah, okay, that's a great question. So very often people have data catalogs, but it's a bit descriptive. So we have this data over there. We have actually years and years of data engineering and data cleaning. So lots of organizations already have make some effort to clean the data to some extent. Now the good news is not only it's rewarding to have better data right now with AI, because then you can solve the bottleneck. Before it was okay to have an imperfect data, because by the end of the day, the output is you will have dashboards, you will have some ML algorithms, but they will not make or break. They don't multiply your efficiency by 10. Now with AI, you leave in value on the table. There is a massive opportunity to 10x everything you do in terms of quality. So now there is an incentive to go there and say, I want to get the best of my data right now. It's not acceptable anymore. So that's the urgency. And then it's really hard to have high quality data because you have multiple systems. You need to triangulate. You need to connect. You just imagine you have multiple products. A very simple example. And these products, they have different names, but sometimes different names mean the same. Before AI, it was hard to solve this, especially the syntax is quite different, but the semantic is the same. But now with AI, it can tell you these are the same trucks or these are the same products, and AI can group them together. This is data remediation, AI powered.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Samir, I'm just laughing because the point that you mentioned in terms of multiple things meaning the same thing, and it's extremely hard to put together. I've recently had an experience where I took over a new brand within the organization, and that for the product, they had 6 different names that were just legacy and no
Yeah.
one could understand what it was. And previously that would have taken months of trying to figure out, but it's such a common paradox that businesses face. So before we get to AI, right? So I'm just looking at this framework. There is 4 to 5 steps that organizations need to be considering before they're even getting to the AI stage,
Yeah. Okay. So
of using AI effectively. Is that right?
so there is a paradox here because I keep
Mm.
saying we need to do these steps before agentic AI. And then I say in the middle of these steps, you can use AI. Okay, it's on purpose. It's true because you can use AI from a technical point of view. You can say, I want to use AI just for data quality so that I can build my knowledge engineering layer. And once you do this, you have this enablement that will enable maybe 20 different use cases. that will happen, not to think anymore about this, but they will just think about the goal orientation. They will think about what's the user experience, which process I'm solving. By the way, I have this amazing knowledge layer I can plug into, and then use cases start to become very successful. So when I say this is a prereq for AI, I mean AI use cases, verticals. But then those people who are going to do this heavy lifting, it's a lot of work. It's very, very contextual, a lot of work. They need to use very custom and specialized AI. But from a technical point of view, I'm using AI to do discovery of my data. I'm using AI to do data remediation. This is a once-off. Or, I mean, it's not vertically aligned to use case. It's really for your data. And then if we move on the steps, there is the task force that comes in and build the knowledge layer. So here you need to build different types of knowledge bases. It's not anymore just SQL tables or data warehouses, or even, it's not anymore a data lake where you can just throw in data. Now you need a layer of almost wisdom and knowledge, and it can be a graph with connections. Instead of just saying I have a transaction over there, I say this type of customer bought this product, and they're related to this other customer who like the same product, and this product is actually very similar to this one. And you build a very big graph of connections and other custom ways. Some of them we cannot even talk about it here because they're way too custom. Hence, you need the right people around the table.
So with these steps now, is it possible for, so for the CEO listening to this, the board member, where they're thinking about their organization, all right, so they've clearly identified data engineering, knowledge engineering is a problem with their AI strategy. How does someone approach, fixing this problem? Do they need to hire a new task force in-house? Is there a particular subject matter expert for this, or do they need to hire external support? Is it consultant? What is it? How would you go about solving this once you've got the framework, there's a problem? Who fixes it?
So look, this is new. Everyone is learning on the way. So it's important to partner so that you have different perspectives and augment yourself as an organization would be my short answer. Now, over time, it's a very strategic skill and capability. So you need to start owning it. So I think it's a balance between the two, but it depends as well which organization you are, what kind of skills you have. It's strategic. So it's important to somehow keep the capability and the secret sauce. But at the end of the day, you have all these models come in, and the data is your only real asset. It's your data.
And to your point, that is something that no one can take from you, and it is really important, but we often don't treat it like that. Yeah, completely agree, but I think we fail to remember that.
Data is wisdom. And so far it was okay not to get the best out of it, just because it's too much effort. Why? Am I going to recruit how many data scientists and insights people? How many dashboards I'm going to do? And even when I have these insights, how do I action them? I'm very smart in my boardroom. I know what to do for the next quarter, but then how does it impact the day-to-day transaction? There was a big gap. But now with AI, you can actually scale all these smart actions. You can go scale them at transaction level. This is what agentic AI is doing. It's not anymore I'm smart every quarter, but I'm smart every minute whenever there is a transaction, because the cost of intelligence goes down, and you can bridge the gap between data and software engineering, and you can bring this intelligence to the transaction level. So the incentive to crack data, to crack insights is much higher than before, because the actionability now is much, much, much higher.
Yeah. Because if we think about, so many decisions businesses make, organizations make, leaders make, often sometimes they're new ideas and new executions that have never been done before. But if we're honest, there's so much that organizations do in terms of transformation decisions that is essentially doing the same thing over again, maybe slightly different. And we try to put a whole new strategic approach on it, and often to forget that sometimes the best learning you can take is what's gone wrong in the past and how things have actually worked out. But often we fail to A, remember to do that, and B, don't have the accurate data to actually, lean on, because it turns into one of your biggest competitive advantages. I think of recently, from my experience, I had an employee leave that'd been with the organization for quite a long time, 20 something years. And when I was hiring for this role, it's an extremely technical role, so it was hard to backfill it. And something that I did, on a very, on a smaller scale that worked really, really well for my business unit was all of this employee's emails, files, spreadsheets, work she'd done over the last 20 years. I remember asking her, can you please get all of that and upload it into Google Drive? She was horrified why I was doing that. But I, didn't do your 6 or 7 script steps. But what I did use was a certain level of data cleaning with, Google app scripts, formatting it, formulating it, and something simple as, uploading it into Notebook LM. When I was able to onboard the new person and, upskilling them for that role would normally take 6 odd months, I got them to full capability and their team within, 6 to 7 weeks, because whenever they had a question, they can refer to what did so-and-so do on the 7th of January, 2001.
There you go.
Bang, right?
Yeah.
So that's a simple term, a practical term that it works. It really, really does work. But where it goes wrong is if you don't clean the data and you just upload a whole bunch of crap, you're going to spend more time, trying to figure out what's what and cleaning up the AI slop than actually getting value out of it. So
that's a great example. That's really good.
Yeah.
You did actually your knowledge engineering, because you started from the data. That was the brilliance of it. Now imagine this at scale. How do you do this at scale?
Yeah. You're exactly right. And it can be applied to anyone, because I said it was a highly technical role. It's a bit of a lie, to be honest, but the role it was for was an executive assistant. And I can argue with anyone that is a highly technical role, because it depends who you're working for, 100%. So but at scale, at an organization level, what does that look like?
Yeah, look, it's as we said, right? There are those steps to happen, and there is this bottom-up approach to mix with top-down as well, because when you have the right, when you're walking backwards, at least you're sure that you're going to the right direction. So this top-down is important. But then by the end of the day, in your story, it's your curiosity, your excitement that led to doing something interesting. You need to, organizations need to mine those positive energies and to get people who are curious to share with others, because we want to uplift everyone. By the end of the day, this is all going, the sky is the limit. There's no, everything will lead to better quality, better experience, new innovations. There's no limit. So it's a positive energy for everyone. But we need to mine those, those initiatives and make sure that we share with others and everyone is uplifted, and then scale them. How do we scale them? The steps that we mentioned, which are more systematic. It's not anymore one person, one individual being smart and doing things. It's how do we do it at system level, to have a big system. And the problem with systems is that it's not linear complexity. When you have 10 items, it's 100 combinations. When you have 1,000, it's 1,000,000. So it needs a proper structure and a proper task force and new skills. You have a new job now. Knowledge engineer is a new job. And it's very rewarding because the bottleneck will keep increasing. So GPT 5.1 just got released.
And
while we speak, and it keeps happening. 3 months, you will have better. There is an exponential curve of intelligence that goes. What's the exponential curve of your wisdom in your company and your knowledge? So these two you need to run after intelligence. Otherwise, the gap will keep increasing. And then it will make it much easier for an AI native company to come in and say, I have no data. It's okay, because intelligence is way higher than context anyway. And people with context, they're not using it. So to avoid this, it's important to force this knowledge layer to run as fast as possible, at least not to diverge too much from the AI.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And if we think about how that applies to a business, when a business is facing a problem, whether it's a merge, investment, acquisition, whatever the problem is, right? A business leader should be able to theoretically go to AI, put that problem in, get a solution, and happy days. But the reality is that isn't the case. I think a large part of that is going to be due to the data and the context that we're giving in, because a lot of the business challenges that organizations are facing, someone has faced before somewhere in the world. And I'm sure there is some of that that's going to be captured in a large language model. So I think there's so many problems and solutions that can be solved, not just at a scientific level where we're curing cancer and, challenging physics. But when we think about business problems, I think there is such a solution there. Whenever I had a really big problem for our team, is I built a thinking tank. So all the hard knock problems that you can't solve, take it to the thinking tank and let's see what AI can do to come up and solve it. And when it didn't have the right context engineering or knowledge engineering, it was crap. It was horrible. It was sort of 20%. But when we put the time up front to give it a brief and actually give it the right level of detail and input, it was chalk and cheese.
Because it's a reasoning engine. We can use LLMs as a knowledge base, but that's very risky because they've seen lots of things. They have some knowledge. It's very risky. It's better to use them as a reasoning engine in which you plug your context, which is a very different thing to do. If you think about it, these models, they were trained on trillions of tokens. They have seen so many websites. It's almost, when you ask them a question, you're pretty much telling them top of your mind with everything you've been dreaming and seeing. Can you tell me this? And then they go very, very deep and they give you some information. It's a very strange way to sort of get knowledge out of the memory of that LLM.
Yeah.
Whereas if you use it as a reasoning engine, because it also learns to connect the dots between many things. It learns to think, to reason like humans do from language. It's not real thinking, but it's language. So if you use it as a reasoning engine, then you're taking much less risk. You're not anymore invoking some memories here and there. You're actually using the power of thinking, but then you give it the context and you say, don't even make things up from your memory, what you learned.
I'm going to stop you there. Hold on. That was absolute gold, what you said. Just rewind 1 second. So reasoning, just explain that part once more for the listeners.
Yeah, of course. So if you look at those LLMs, they don't just remember facts. They actually looked at connections, connecting the dots. They looked at all those coding websites, Stack Overflow. They looked at recipes. They looked at news. They looked at conversations. And the way they were trained, it's a really good way of training where data was cleaned before, then there was reinforcement learning. So they became a bit of reasoning. They can connect the dots and reason. That's why they beat lots of benchmarks. So by using them as reasoning engine and brain power, not as memory, not as databases. Don't use their memory, use their reasoning power and reasoning engine. And then you plug them on your data. It's just a much, much safer way to get value out of them. Because they don't make data out of anything. You look at your context, your data, and they use the brain, the reasoning engine to make sense of it, to reason, to connect the dots on your data.
I think so many organizations are doing that backwards.
Imagine you open your ChatGPT or whatever, and you say, I have this problem. How do I go about it? Or I have a white page. I want to write an email. So it will give you it will invoke some memories, best practice, some things. And it will give you something. So that's one way to use it. It generates things. Then you have other ways to use it where people try to get information. They say, I have this kind of car, and they try to get a number, like what's the value of this, what kind of oil I should put on, or they try to invoke the memory of the LLM. This is a bit risky because it will get it right for things that are very common and very popular, but sometimes it might hallucinate. This is where hallucination happens, when you start to invoke the memory of that LLM. And then the safer way to use it is just to say, don't try to give me any, knowledge. Just look at my data. That's your knowledge and your only knowledge, and use your brain power. Actually, not the brain, but use your reasoning power to make sense and to solve my problems or to clean my data, for example. And this is a really good way to use it. But all of them are actually complementary, but some are more risky than others. Don't give it access to some data that it shouldn't see. It's just the old good habit of minimal access that we apply to people, which should apply to AI.
Now, we've spoken about your 5-step framework that they need to be aware of, but if they were going to take away 2 or 3 things from everything we've spoken about today, what would it be?
Look, it's a bit hard because there are many things to consider at the same time. So probably the first one is awareness, right? Being aware. What, as an organization, am I aware what AI can do? Actually, first of all, what's the range of the possibilities? That's one. Then where is my bottleneck? So we say that very often the bottleneck is data and knowledge. So I'm passionate about this one. It might be something else. Maybe imagine a company where the technology is not even enabled. They're not on cloud, or you might have all kind of bottlenecks, or you don't have enough SMEs. You cannot just rely on tech. But very often that happens to actually bottleneck and the ability to turn it into knowledge. So first of all, awareness about what AI can do, then awareness about where is my bottleneck. Why don't I have AI doing amazing things for me right now? Why? And you can find your bottlenecks. And then once you have your technology, you have your people, and you have your data, you need to connect the dots then. I want people to become upskilled and empowered to use AI. I want data to be uplifted to become knowledge layer, wisdom layer, and then I can plug my AI and start to make things happen. And of course, you need your governance, you need your expertise, and you need collaboration around the table. But it's a pretty safe bet to map your data and to uplift it to a knowledge layer. I think it's a no regrets in any case, and it will enable it's a horizontal thing to do. It will enable so many things across the board.
From everything you've spoken about, we all hear about AI sometimes working, sometimes not working. But the key thing every listener needs to be doing, if you're going to take away anything, is if you are implementing AI and you are using it currently and scaling it, and it's not giving you the amazing things that Samir is describing, you need to be asking yourself is why? Why isn't it doing those amazing things? So often where we don't think about the basic questions that you've just asked. Why? We're often too quick to blame the model, blame the technology, blame the people. But some retrospective thinking is what I think a lot of us need to be actually implementing and using.
I mean, pretty much always. The bottleneck is not AI. The AI is leading the entire curve. Not only it's not the bottleneck, it's the complexity, right? It's not the bottleneck, but in 3 months, it will be less of a bottleneck. And the gap between bottlenecks and this AI is bigger. So this is why there is a bit of sense of urgency to close those gaps.
And as technology evolves and it gets more and more complicated and the bigger your investments get, the harder it is to untangle. If you're investing in AI and you've got implementation, why is it working? Why is it not working? That is the exact way you solve any business problem. If our CapEx is invested and we're down, we don't just blame the people and organization. Why isn't it working? And if you apply that to AI, I think you're going to come to your answer pretty quickly because it's not the technology.
Yeah, it's making it work for you.
Yeah,
it has been built for everyone else, but not you and me. It has been built for everyone. Everyone means no one in particular. So how do you make it work for you specifically and your context? It's your responsibility as an organization.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Samir. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way? Is it LinkedIn? Send you a connection request?
Yeah, LinkedIn
How do
is
people
great.
find out about you?
Yeah, Samir Ghoudrani, LinkedIn. I love interacting, making new connections. Always up for conversation about AI. Look, now it's Friday evening. I'm having great pleasure talking to you, Ramon.
Now remember, you can't control the speed of change, but you can control how quick you adapt. Thank you. My name's Ramon Rodriguez. This is Applied AI. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you soon.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.